Captain Marcus Reed stood on the bridge of the Cipher-8, his weathered hands gripping the worn command rail. Through the main view screen, he watched as sleek, modern ships of the Earth Alliance fleet glided past. Their hulls gleamed with fresh paint and new technology. In contrast, his ship, the Cipher-8, was a relic from another era. "Look at them," said Engineer Thomas, stepping up beside Reed. "All shine, no soul." Reed nodded. Thomas had been with the ship almost as long as he had, 15 years of service on a vessel that the Alliance had tried to retire at least 3 times. "Captain," called Communications Officer Miller from her station. "Incoming message from command." "Put it through," Reed said, straightening his uniform jacket. The view screen changed to show Admiral Parker's stern face. "Captain Reed, how's that old bucket holding together?" Reed forced a smile. "Still flying, sir. The Cipher-8 has never let us down." "That's about to be tested. I'm sending you coordinates for your final mission." Reed felt a chill at the words "final mission." The crew had known this was coming, but hearing it said out loud made it real. "We're being decommissioned then?" Reed asked. "After this mission, yes. The Cipher-8 will be retired and your crew reassigned. Some outdated equipment simply can't keep up with modern threats." Thomas made a small noise of disagreement but stayed quiet. "What's the mission, sir?" Reed asked. "We've detected strange energy readings at the edge of charted space. Probably nothing. Could be a sensor malfunction or natural phenomenon. But we need someone to check it out." Reed understood what wasn't being said. This was busy work, a meaningless final task for an outdated ship before it was scrapped. "Sending the coordinates now," Parker said. "Complete the mission and return to Earth Station for decommissioning." Parker out. The screen went dark, and the bridge was silent for a moment. "Well," Reed finally said, "it seems we have one last adventure. They're just trying to keep us out of the way," Security Chief Davis said from his tactical station, "sending us to chase ghosts while the real ships do the real work." Reed turned to face his bridge crew. They were all veterans, people who had chosen to stay with the Cipher-8 rather than transfer to newer ships. They had become more like family than colleagues. "Maybe so," Reed said, "but we'll do what we've always done. Complete the mission and prove that experience counts for more than new technology." He turned to the helm. "Officer Bryant, set course for these coordinates. Maximum speed." "Aye, Captain." As the ship hummed to life and prepared to jump to faster-than-light travel, Reed sat in his command chair, running his hand along the armrest where the padding had worn thin from years of use. Later that evening, Reed met with his senior officers in the ship's small conference room. The room, like much of the Cipher-8, showed its age: scratched table surface, outdated display screens, and lighting panels that occasionally flickered. "Let's talk about what we know," Reed said. "Miller, what information did Command send about these energy readings?" Miller, a woman with short gray hair and quick eyes, brought up a display. "Not much, Captain. Just coordinates and basic sensor data. The energy signature doesn't match anything in our database, which means it could be something new and important," Thomas said, leaning forward. The engineer was always excited by the unknown. "Or it could be nothing," Davis countered. The security chief was naturally suspicious, a trait that had saved the ship more than once. "Either way," Reed said, "we're going to investigate properly. Thomas, I want you to prepare the ship's sensors for detailed scans. Davis, run a full weapons check, just in case. The weapons systems are outdated compared to what the fleet has now," Davis noted. Thomas smiled. "Maybe on paper, but they don't know about our modifications." Over the years, Thomas had made numerous unofficial upgrades to the Cipher-8, changes that weren't in any official record. Command would never have approved many of them, which is why they were kept secret. The ship might look outdated, but it had capabilities that even the newest vessels didn't. "Miller," Reed continued, "keep monitoring for any additional communications from Command or any other ships in that sector." There shouldn't be any, Miller said. The coordinates are far from regular patrol routes or trade lanes. Reed nodded slowly. Which makes me wonder why they're sending us all the way out there for what they claim is probably nothing. The officers exchanged knowing looks. They had all served long enough to recognize when they weren't being told the whole truth. Captain, Bryant said quietly, do you think this could be related to the rumors about the Vorn? The Vorn were an alien species that had been in a tense standoff with humanity for nearly a decade. Not quite war, but far from peace. What rumors? Davis asked. I heard from a friend on the Stargazer that there have been unusual Vorn movements near the outer sectors, Bryant explained. Nothing official, just whispers. Reed considered this. It would explain why command is being vague. They don't want to start a panic if the Vorn are up to something. And they might be sending us because we're expendable, Davis finished. Or, Thomas suggested with a hint of pride, because despite what they say publicly, they know the Cipher-8 can handle itself in a tough situation. Reed stood up and walked to the small viewport. Stars streaked by as the ship traveled through space. Whatever the reason, we'll be ready. This ship may be old, but it's far from outdated where it counts. He turned back to his officers. Get some rest. We arrive at the coordinates in 10 hours. As the meeting ended and the officers filed out, Reed remained in the conference room alone. He pulled out a small data chip from his pocket. His private orders from Admiral Wilson, Parker's superior. Unlike Parker, Wilson had always respected the Cipher-8 and its crew. Reed inserted the chip into a reader and encrypted text appeared on the screen. Marcus, the official mission is cover. What you're really looking for is evidence of a Vorn superweapon. Intelligence suggests they've discovered something ancient and powerful. Your outdated ship might be our best asset. The Vorn won't consider you a threat. Be careful, old friend. The fate of the Alliance may depend on what you find. Reed deleted the message and crushed the chip. He had suspected there was more to this mission, but a potential superweapon raised the stakes considerably. The Cipher-8 might be heading toward its final mission, but Reed was determined it would be one that mattered. Maybe then, people would stop calling his ship outdated. He straightened his uniform and headed for the bridge. The crew didn't need to know everything yet. Better to let them rest while they could. Tomorrow, they would face whatever waited for them at the edge of known space, and Reed knew one thing for certain. Outdated or not, the Cipher-8 and its crew wouldn't go quietly into retirement. The alarm woke Captain Reed from a light sleep. He had dozed off in his chair after reviewing old mission logs, searching for any previous encounters with the Vorn that might help their current mission. Captain, to the bridge. Miller's voice came through the comm system. We're approaching the coordinates. Reed straightened his uniform and made his way through the familiar corridors of the Cipher-8. The ship had been his home for so long that he could navigate it with his eyes closed, feeling every vibration and sound like they were extensions of his own body. When he stepped onto the bridge, his crew was already at their stations, faces lit by the glow of control panels. Report, Reed said, settling into his command chair. We're dropping out of faster-than-light travel now, Bryant announced from the helm. The view screen showed the streaking stars slow and settle into distant points of light. Sensors active, Thomas said from the engineering station. Running full spectrum scans. Reed leaned forward. What are we looking at? The view screen adjusted to show what appeared to be empty space, but as the sensors focused, something began to take shape. A massive structure floating against the blackness of space. What is that? Davis asked, voicing what everyone was thinking. Thomas worked his controls, enhancing the image. It's artificial, Captain. Approximately 2 kilometers in length. The structure is made of materials I've never seen before. Our sensors can barely read it. The object on the screen was unlike anything they had encountered. It had a circular design with a hollow center, like a massive ring or gateway. Strange markings covered its surface, glowing with soft blue light. Is it Vorn? Reed asked. Miller shook her head. The design doesn't match any known foreign technology. This is something else entirely. The energy readings are off the charts, Thomas added. It's putting out more power than our ship's reactor, but I can't identify the source. Reed stood and approached the view screen. Take us closer, Bryant. Slow approach. Davis, keep weapons on standby, but do not power them up yet. The Cipher-8 edged toward the mysterious structure. As they drew closer, the blue glow pulsed subtly, as if responding to their presence. Captain, Miller called out, I'm detecting unusual radiation patterns. They're forming what looks like a data stream. Can you decode it? Reed asked. Miller worked at her station. It's not like any communication protocol I've seen, but there's a pattern to it. Give me time, and I might be able to figure something out. Reed nodded. Do what you can. Captain, Thomas interrupted, his voice tense. I'm detecting something else. A gravitational distortion about half a light hour away. Something's coming. Reed turned to Davis. Identify. Davis's fingers flew over his console. Ships. Multiple signatures. They're using some kind of cloaking technology, but our modified sensors can detect their engine emissions. Vorn? Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. Yes, sir. A battle group. 1 command ship and at least 6 support vessels. They're heading straight for us. Reed's mind raced. The Vorn were a militaristic species, proud and aggressive. If they were sending a battle group, they clearly valued this strange structure. Time until they reach us? Reed asked. At their current speed, 15 minutes, Bryant reported. Options? Reed looked at his senior officers. We could try to hide behind the structure, Davis suggested. They'll detect us eventually, Miller countered. We could send a message to command, Bryant offered. Thomas shook his head. The nearest Earth Alliance ship is days away. We're on our own. Reed walked a slow circle around the bridge, considering their situation. The Cipher-8 was outgunned and outmatched. Even with Thomas's modifications, they couldn't hope to defeat a Vorn battle group. Captain, Miller said suddenly, I've made some progress with the data stream. It's not a communication. It's more like a doorway. Explain, Reed demanded. The radiation pattern is creating a stable field in the center of the ring structure. It's similar to the theories about dimensional gateways that scientists have been working on for decades. Thomas moved to Miller's station and studied her readings. She's right. This thing isn't a weapon. It's a gateway to somewhere else. Can we use it? Reed asked. Thomas and Miller exchanged uncertain looks. Theoretically, Thomas said, but we have no idea where it leads. 10 minutes until Vorn intercept, Davis announced. Reed faced a decision that would determine not just their fate, but potentially the fate of Earth. If the Vorn captured this technology, they could use it against the Alliance. Miller, can you activate the gateway? Reed asked. I think so, she replied. The data stream contains what appears to be activation sequences. Do it, Reed ordered. Bryant, position us directly in front of the center of the ring. As Miller worked to decode the activation sequence, the rest of the bridge crew watched in silence. The Vorn ships were growing closer by the minute. Captain, Davis said quietly. What are you planning? Reed met his security chief's gaze. Sometimes, the only way out is through. Understanding dawned on Davis's face. You're going to take us through the gateway. It's a risk, Reed acknowledged. But our options are limited. We can surrender to the Vorn, try to fight and certainly lose, or take a chance on the unknown. The old Cipher-8 surprising everyone again, Thomas said with a grim smile. I like it. 5 minutes to Vorn intercept, Bryant reported. They're increasing speed. Miller, Reed asked. I've identified the activation sequence, she replied. Sending it now. The bridge crew watched as the blue glow of the structure intensified. The hollow center began to fill with swirling energy, like water spinning down a drain, but in reverse. Colors that none of them had names for spiraled and danced. It's working, Miller said, her voice filled with awe. "The Vorn are hailing us," Davis reported. "They're ordering us to move away from the structure." No response. Reed ordered, "Bryant, take us in. Full impulse power." Bryant hesitated for just a moment. "Sir, we don't know what's on the other side." Reed placed a hand on his helmsman's shoulder. "That's true. But we do know what's behind us. Sometimes the unknown is better than certain defeat." Bryant nodded and set the course. "All hands secure for possible turbulence," Reed announced shipwide. "We're about to make history." The Cipher-8 moved forward, its aging hull reflecting the strange energies emanating from the gateway. As they approached the swirling center, the ship began to vibrate. "Structural integrity holding," Thomas reported, "but just barely." 2 minutes to Vorn intercept, Davis announced. "They're charging weapons." "Steady," Reed said, gripping his command chair. "Steady." The nose of the Cipher-8 touched the energy field, causing ripples like a stone dropped in a pond. Then, slowly, the ship began to pass through. Energy levels spiking. Thomas shouted over the growing noise of the straining ship. Light filled the bridge, blinding and intense. Reed felt a strange sensation, as if his body was being pulled in all directions at once. The last thing he heard was Davis's voice. "The Vorn are firing." Then everything went white, and the Cipher-8, the ship they called outdated, disappeared from known space. Admiral Wilson stood at the large window in Earth Alliance Command Headquarters, watching ships come and go from the orbital station. His reflection showed a man with tired eyes and a deeply lined face, the result of 30 years of military service and the weight of countless difficult decisions. "Sir," his assistant said from the doorway, "they're ready for you in the Situation Room." Wilson nodded and straightened his uniform. He had been dreading this meeting since the first report came in 12 hours ago. The Situation Room was filled with high-ranking officers when Wilson entered. Their conversations stopped immediately, all eyes turning to him. "What do we know?" Wilson asked without preamble. Colonel Hayes, head of strategic operations, stood and activated the main display. The Cipher-8 reached its assigned coordinates at 700 hours yesterday. They maintained regular communication until 7:42, when they reported discovering an unknown structure. The display showed the last transmission data from the Cipher-8, including grainy images of a massive ring-shaped object. Their final transmission came at 8:03, Hayes continued. After that, nothing. No distress signal, no debris field, nothing to indicate what happened. The ship simply vanished. "Could it have been destroyed?" asked General Roberts. "Unlikely," Hayes replied. "Even if the ship was completely vaporized, which is beyond any known weapon technology, we would detect energy readings or radiation signatures. There's nothing." "What about the Vorn?" Wilson asked, though he already suspected the answer. Hayes changed the display to show sensor data from a nearby monitoring station. A Vorn battle group was detected entering the area approximately 10 minutes after we lost contact with the Cipher-8. They remained for several hours, then departed. "So they either destroyed our ship or captured it," Roberts said. "If they had captured or destroyed the Cipher-8, they would be broadcasting it across every channel." Wilson countered. "The Vorn never miss an opportunity for propaganda." "Perhaps they're keeping it quiet because of what the Cipher-8 found," Hayes suggested. Wilson nodded. "The structure. What do we know about it?" Hayes looked uncomfortable. "Very little, sir. The Cipher-8's data transmission was incomplete. We know it's not of Earth or Vorn origin. Its power output was substantial, beyond anything we've seen before." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. An unknown alien structure with immense power, now potentially in Vorn hands. "The diplomatic office received this an hour ago," Wilson said, inserting a data chip into the table's console. The display changed to show a Vorn diplomat, their scaled skin and vertical pupils unmistakable. "Earth Alliance Command," the Vorn began. We formally protest your illegal weapons testing in neutral space. Your vessel activated a device of unknown power near our borders. We demand an explanation and reparations for this clear act of aggression." Wilson stopped the recording. "They think we were testing a weapon. Were we?" someone asked quietly. Wilson's expression hardened. The Cipher-8 was sent to investigate anomalous readings, nothing more. Captain Reed had clear orders not to engage with any technology they found. But Wilson knew Reed well enough to doubt he would sit idle if the Vorn appeared. The captain was resourceful and dedicated to protecting Earth, sometimes too dedicated. "We need answers," Wilson declared. "I want a task force assembled to return to those coordinates. Full sensor package, armed escort." "The Vorn won't like that," Roberts warned. "I don't care what the Vorn like," Wilson replied. "I have a missing ship and crew." As the meeting continued, a young analyst named James sat at his workstation several floors below, reviewing the Cipher-8's final transmissions. He had been assigned to do a standard data analysis, but something caught his attention. James enhanced the audio from the ship's last moments. Most of it was standard communication, but beneath that, barely audible, was another signal. He isolated it and ran it through various filters. "That's odd," he muttered. The hidden signal wasn't random noise. It had a pattern, a repeating sequence of tones that didn't match any standard Earth Alliance communication protocol. James pulled up the record of Captain Reed's service history. Reed had served in intelligence before taking command of the Cipher-8. He would know old emergency codes. James's fingers flew over his console as he compared the strange signal to outdated intelligence protocols. Finally, he found a match. A code so old it hadn't been used in 15 years. Decoded, the message was simple but baffling. "Not destroyed. Gateway active. Crossing THRES isolated." James sat back, staring at the words on his screen. If his analysis was correct, the Cipher-8 hadn't been destroyed or captured. They had gone somewhere else. He hesitated only briefly before sending his findings directly to Admiral Wilson. Wilson dismissed the meeting and returned to his office, his mind racing with possible scenarios and contingency plans. When he saw the urgent message from the analysis division, he opened it immediately. 5 minutes later, Wilson locked his office door and activated his secure communication terminal. The face that appeared on the screen belonged to Dr. Lena Wright, head of the Alliance's classified dimensional physics division. "Admiral," she greeted him. "This is unexpected." "Doctor, what do you know about gateways, specifically interdimensional ones?" Wright's expression changed from surprise to caution. "Such technology is theoretical at best. We've had some success in lab conditions creating microscopic connections between points in spacetime, but nothing stable or large enough to be practical." "What if someone else had succeeded where we failed?" Wilson asked. "Someone else? You mean the Vorn?" "I mean someone else entirely. An unknown civilization with technology far beyond ours or the Vorn's." Wright was silent for a moment. If such technology existed, it would represent the most significant discovery in human history. The ability to move between dimensions would change everything. Travel, resources, possibly even our understanding of reality itself. And if a ship, say, an older model Earth Alliance vessel, were to enter such a gateway. Understanding dawned on Wright's face. Is that what happened to the Cipher-8? Wilson sent her the decoded message. According to this, yes. Wright studied the message, then looked back at Wilson. If they did enter a gateway, there's no way to know where or when they ended up. They could be anywhere in the multiverse. But they might still be alive, Wilson said. Possibly, Wright conceded. But finding them would be like finding a specific grain of sand on all the beaches of Earth. Wilson's expression hardened with determination. Then we'd better start looking. After ending the call, Wilson stood at his window again, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Cipher-8, the ship everyone called outdated, and its crew might still be alive. traveling through dimensions no human had ever seen before. "Find your way home, Marcus," Wilson whispered to the stars. "And until then, I'll make sure no one forgets about you." He turned and activated his secure terminal again. This time, he would assemble a team, not a standard search and rescue, but a covered operation to investigate the gateway and perhaps, somehow, open a path for the Cipher-8 to return. The ship might be outdated by modern standards, but its crew was among the best the Alliance had ever produced. If anyone could survive the impossible, it was them. Pain was the first thing Captain Reed felt when he opened his eyes. His head throbbed, and a warm trickle of blood ran down his temple. The bridge of the Cipher-8 was dark, lit only by emergency lights and sparking control panels. "Status report," he called out, his voice hoarse. He pulled himself up from where he had fallen next to his command chair. Around him, his crew was slowly regaining consciousness. Thomas was already at his engineering station, working to restore power. "Main power is down," Thomas reported. "Life support is running on emergency backups. Hull integrity is at 82%. "Communications," Reed asked, looking toward Miller's station. Miller, wiping blood from a cut on her forehead, checked her controls. "Communications are offline, Captain. I can't even tell if the system is damaged or if there's simply nothing to communicate with." Sensors. Davis had managed to get a partial system working. "Limited function, sir. But what I can see." His voice trailed off. "Report, Davis," Reed insisted. "We're not where we were, sir. The stars are all wrong. Constellations don't match any in our database." Reed moved to look at Davis's display. The security chief was right. The star patterns visible outside the ship were completely unfamiliar. "The gateway," Reed said quietly. "It worked. But where are we?" Bryant asked from the helm, which was now flickering back to life as Thomas rerouted power. More importantly, Miller added, "Can we get back?" Reed had no answers for them yet. "Thomas, focus on repairs. First priority is sensors. We need to know what's out there. Then communications and propulsion." "Already on it, Captain," Thomas replied. "But it's going to take time. Some of the systems were fried by whatever energy field we passed through." Reed nodded. "Everyone else, help Thomas or tend to the injured. We'll regroup in 1 hour." 3 hours later, the Cipher-8 had limped to the shadow of a small moon in an unknown star system. Basic systems were functioning again, though many were running at reduced capacity. The crew had gathered in the conference room to assess their situation. Based on stellar positioning and spectrographic analysis, Davis explained, pointing to a display, "We're still in what appears to be the Milky Way galaxy. However, several star systems that should be there are missing, and others we've never recorded are present." "A parallel dimension," Thomas suggested. "The gateway must have sent us to a reality similar to our own, but with differences." "Is there any sign of Earth?" Reed asked. Davis hesitated. "There's a solar system approximately 15 light-years from our position that matches Earth's sun. But without better sensors, I can't confirm if Earth itself exists there." "What about the gateway?" Miller asked. "Can we find our way back?" "The gateway structure doesn't appear to exist in this location in this dimension," Davis said. "At least not that our sensors can detect." Reed considered their options. With limited fuel and damaged systems, they couldn't travel far. But staying in one place meant risking discovery by whoever or whatever existed in this dimension. "We need more information," Reed decided. "Set course for the Earth-like solar system, maximum sustainable speed. We'll approach cautiously and observe before making contact, if Earth exists here." It took the damaged Cipher-8 nearly a week to reach the solar system. As they approached, their improved sensors confirmed what they had hoped for. Earth existed in this dimension too. But as they drew closer, the differences became apparent. "Captain," Davis called out, his voice tense, "I'm detecting large artificial structures in orbit around Earth, dozens of them. Design matches nothing in our database. Military installations. Reed asked. Based on power signatures and configuration, yes. And there's more. The lunar colonies are gone. Instead, there appears to be a massive mining operation. Reed ordered the ship to hold position just beyond Pluto's orbit. Can we monitor their communications? Miller worked at her station. I'm picking up transmissions, but the encryption is unlike anything I've seen. Give me time to analyze it. Hours passed as Miller worked on breaking the encryption. Finally, she succeeded in accessing what appeared to be a news broadcast from Earth. The crew gathered around the view screen, falling silent as the images appeared. Earth was still recognizable, but many cities appeared damaged or rebuilt in an unfamiliar style. The people looked human, but their clothing and appearance were slightly different from what the crew knew. Most shocking was the news itself. Reports of resistance fighters being captured, of alien governors imposing new restrictions, of humans being relocated for labor assignments. They're occupied, Reed said quietly. Earth is under alien control in this dimension. Can we identify the aliens? Thomas asked. Miller adjusted the feed to show footage of the occupiers. Tall, scaled beings with vertical pupils, unmistakably Vorn, but with subtle differences from the ones they knew. It's the Vorn, Davis confirmed, but not exactly our Vorn. Different evolution in this dimension, Thomas suggested. The same species, but their history took a different path. Reed watched the broadcast with a heavy heart. In their dimension, Earth and the Vorn were locked in a cold war, each side wary, but neither willing to risk open conflict. Here, the war had happened, and humanity had lost. Captain, Bryant said suddenly, I'm picking up a ship approaching our position. It's small, possibly a scout vessel. Have they detected us? Reed asked. I don't think so. Their course seems predetermined, like a patrol route. Reed made a quick decision. Intercept course, minimal power. Let's see who they are without revealing ourselves. The Cipher-8 moved silently toward the approaching vessel. As they drew closer, they could see it was indeed a small patrol ship, but not of foreign design. It appeared to be human-made, but cobbled together from mismatched parts. They're transmitting a coded signal, Miller reported. I think it's some kind of identification broadcast. Should I respond? Reed hesitated. Responding could give away their position, but remaining silent might make the patrol ship investigate. Send a standard Earth Alliance greeting, Reed decided. Let's see how they react. Miller transmitted the message. For long moments, there was no response. Then the patrol ship changed course, heading directly for them. They're powering weapons, Davis warned. Hold position, Reed ordered. Shields up, but do not arm weapons. The view screen activated, showing the face of the patrol ship's captain, a human woman with a scared face and hard eyes. Unknown vessel, she said, her voice tense. Identify yourself immediately or be destroyed. That was an Earth Alliance code from before the fall. Who are you? Reed stepped forward. I am Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth Alliance vessel Cipher-8. We are not from your dimension. We came through a gateway and are seeking information. The woman's expression changed from suspicion to shock. The Cipher-8 was destroyed 12 years ago during the first foreign invasion. If this is some kind of foreign trick. Not a trick, Reed assured her. In our dimension, Earth and the Vorn are in a stalemate. We accidentally traveled through a gateway while investigating the strange structure. The woman was silent for a long moment, studying Reed and the bridge of the Cipher-8. Finally, she spoke again. If you're telling the truth, you need to come with us immediately. The Vorn patrol will be here within an hour. Where would you take us? Reed asked. To what's left of the resistance, she replied. And to someone who might believe your story, the only surviving officer from this dimension's Cipher-8. The resistance base was hidden deep inside an asteroid in the belt between Mars and Jupiter. As the Cipher-8 followed the patrol ship into a concealed hangar, Reed marveled at the ingenuity of the humans who had created this secret fortress. They've hollowed out the entire asteroid, Thomas said, examining the sensor readings. Power systems, life support, even artificial gravity, all hidden from Vorn scanners. The Cipher-8 settled onto the landing pad, and Reed ordered the crew to prepare for contact. They had no idea what kind of reception awaited them in this alternate dimension. When the airlock opened, they found themselves facing a dozen armed resistance fighters. At the front stood the woman from the patrol ship, and beside her, an older man with a mechanical right arm and familiar eyes that widened in shock when he saw Reed. "It really is you," the man said in a voice Reed recognized despite its rougher edge. Reed stared at his counterpart from this dimension, an older, battle-scarred version of himself. "You're me," the other Reed nodded, "or who you might have become in a world where the Vorn won." He turned to the fighters. "Stand down. They're not a threat." As the weapons lowered, the two Reeds studied each other. Same face, different destinies. "Call me Marcus," the counterpart said, "since we can't both be Captain Reed. And this is Commander Jackson, my second in command." The scared woman nodded curtly. "You should come with us. The Council will want to hear your story." The Resistance Council chamber was a converted cargo hold, filled with maps, communication equipment, and a large table where a dozen people now sat listening to Reed explain their journey through the gateway. "In our dimension," Reed concluded, "Earth and the Vorn maintain an uneasy peace. Neither side has a clear advantage. That changed here when they found the Ancient One's technology," Marcus said. "Weapons beyond anything we could counter. The war lasted less than a year." "The Ancient Ones?" Miller asked. "The civilization that built the gateway," Commander Jackson explained. "They left structures like it throughout the galaxy millions of years ago. The Vorn found one and used it to enhance their weapons technology." Thomas leaned forward eagerly. "But the gateway we came through, it still exists in our dimension. Could we use it to help you?" A scientist on the council shook her head. "The gateways are paired systems. The one in this dimension was destroyed by the Vorn after they used it, to prevent any other species from gaining the same advantage." "Then how do we get back home?" Bryant asked the question on everyone's mind. Marcus exchanged looks with the council members. "We might have a way. We've been working on recreating gateway technology using what we've learned from Ancient One artifacts. It's not complete, but with your ship's data on the original gateway. You want to rebuild it," Reed realized. "Not just to send us home, but to give your resistance an advantage." "Exactly," Marcus confirmed. "Your ship, your outdated Cipher-8, might be exactly what we need." Reed's crew looked to him. The decision was complex. Helping could further entangle them in this dimension's war, but refusing would leave both them and the resistance with few options. "Show us what you have," Reed decided. Days turned into weeks as the crew of the Cipher-8 worked alongside the resistance. Thomas and the resistance engineers analyzed the ship's sensor logs of the gateway, while Miller helped decrypt Vorn communications to learn more about their security protocols. "There's something else," Thomas told Reed one evening. "Something unusual about why our ship was able to pass through the gateway safely." "What do you mean?" Reed asked. "Modern Earth Alliance ships have quantum-aligned shield systems. According to the resistance scientists, those systems would have catastrophically interacted with the gateway energy field. But the Cipher-8's shields are older," Reed realized. Thomas nodded. "Our outdated technology saved us, and it might be the key to defeating the Vorn here." The plan came together piece by piece. The resistance would use the Cipher-8's older technology to create weapons and shields that the Vorn couldn't easily detect or counter. Meanwhile, the partial gateway they had been building would be completed using the data from Reed's ship. "It won't be stable for long," the lead scientist explained during the final briefing. "Maybe enough for your ship to pass through, but that's it." "What about your people?" Reed asked Marcus. "We'll use what we've learned from you to continue the fight," Marcus replied. "Your shield and weapons designs will give us a real chance against the Vorn." You could stay, Commander Jackson suggested. Your crew, your ship, you could make a difference here. Reed looked at his crew. They had discussed this possibility privately. Staying would mean never seeing their homes again, but they could help turn the tide for humanity in this dimension. Bryant spoke for all of them. Our dimension needs to know about the gateway, about the Ancient Ones, if the Vorn in our reality find this technology first. Reed nodded. We need to go back, but we'll leave you with everything we have. Technical specifications, tactical data, all of it. Marcus understood. One Cipher-8 might be gone from this dimension, but another brought us hope. Maybe that's how it was meant to be. The day of departure came too quickly. The Resistance had installed the gateway components in a remote section of the asteroid belt, far from Vorn patrols. The Cipher-8, repaired and improved with Resistance modifications, hovered before the incomplete ring structure. Gateway powering up, Thomas reported from engineering. Energy patterns matched those from our original crossing. Reed opened a channel to the Resistance base. Marcus, are you receiving? Loud and clear, his counterpart replied. Gateway is at 60% power and rising. Remember, you'll have only moments to cross once it stabilizes. Reed looked around at his crew, now at their stations and ready for the journey home. Whatever happens, it's been an honor to serve with all of you. This mission revealed more than we ever expected, and you've all performed admirably. Vorn ships detected. Davis suddenly called out. 3 cruisers heading this way. They must have detected the gateway power signature. Time to activation, Reed asked. 2 minutes, Thomas replied. The Vorn will be in weapons range in 3. Reed made a quick decision. Marcus, we're going to draw them away from the gateway. Once it's active, we'll circle back. That's cutting it close, Marcus warned. The old Cipher-8 has a few tricks left, Reed assured him. This ship may be outdated, but it still has fight in it. The Cipher-8 accelerated away from the gateway, deliberately letting the Vorn detect them. As expected, the enemy ships changed course to pursue. They're taking the bait, Davis confirmed. Now, Bryant, Reed ordered. Execute pattern Omega. The helmsman grinned as he activated the maneuver they had practiced. The Cipher-8 cut its engines, spun 180 degrees, and fired its afterburners directly at the lead Vorn ship. The unexpected move caused the Vorn vessels to scatter, buying precious seconds. Gateway at full power, Thomas shouted. It's stable. Reed ordered a hard turn back toward the gateway. The swirling energy field had formed in the center of the incomplete ring, their door home. The Vorn are regrouping, Davis warned. Firing range in 30 seconds. All power to engines, Reed commanded. Straight through the middle. The Cipher-8 raced toward the gateway as energy blasts from the Vorn ships began to fill space around them. Just before they reached the threshold, Reed sent one final message. Thank you, Marcus. Keep fighting. In at least one universe, humanity will never surrender. Then the Cipher-8 hit the energy field. Light engulfed the ship, and once again, they vanished. They emerged into familiar space, the original gateway still spinning with energy before them. But they weren't alone. A joint Earth-Vorn task force had surrounded the structure, weapons trained on it. Multiple ships detected, Davis reported. Earth Alliance and Vorn. They're not firing at each other. We're being hailed, Miller announced. It's Admiral Wilson. The Admiral's shocked face appeared on screen. Reed, is that really you? Reed smiled tiredly. Yes, sir. The Cipher-8 is returning to duty, and we have quite a story to tell. As Reed began his report, he realized that the ship once ridiculed as outdated had not only survived the impossible, but had forever changed 2 dimensions. Sometimes, he thought, the old ways still had value. A lesson both humanity and the Vorn would soon learn.
The warning siren started at dawn. Sarah Okonkwo was drinking coffee on her balcony when the first alarm cut through the peaceful morning air of New Harare, the capital city of Demeter. She nearly dropped her cup. In 20 years as governor of this colony world, Those sirens had only been tested once a month. They had never sounded for real. She ran inside and activated her communication console. The screen lit up with red emergency indicators. Her military advisor, Colonel James Park, appeared on the screen. His face was pale. "Governor, we have multiple contacts entering the system. They just dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our detection range." "How many?" Sarah asked. Her hands were already shaking. 60 ships. Maybe more. They're bigger than anything in our defense fleet. Sarah felt her stomach drop. Demeter had exactly 4 patrol ships. They were designed to handle pirates and smugglers, not a military fleet. "Have they responded to our hails?" "No, ma'am. We've broadcasted on all standard frequencies. They're not answering." Colonel Park paused, checking something off screen. "Governor, they're moving toward us fast." Sarah's mind raced through the possibilities. Demeter was a farming colony, home to 2 million people. They grew food for 6 other human worlds. They had no military installations, no weapons factories, nothing worth attacking. "Keep trying to contact them," she ordered. "Get me a connection to Earth Command. We need help." "Already tried, Governor. Something is blocking our FTL communications. We can't send messages out of the system." That was when Sarah knew this was not a misunderstanding. This was an attack. She had studied history in school back on Earth. She remembered reading about ancient wars, about armies that would cut communication lines before an invasion. She had never thought she would experience it herself. Humanity had been so peaceful for so long. "How long until they reach us?" she asked quietly. "At their current speed? 14 hours. Sarah took a deep breath. "Sound the evacuation alert. Get everyone to the shelters. And Colonel, activate Ember Protocol." Colonel Park's eyes widened. "Governor, are you certain?" "That protocol—" "I know what it means," Sarah interrupted. "Do it now." Ember Protocol was something every colony governor knew about but hoped never to use. It stood for Emergency Military Basic Emergency Response. It had been created 200 years ago, during the early days of human space exploration, when colonies were vulnerable and help was far away. The protocol was simple. If a colony was attacked and could not get help in time, they would fight. They would hold the enemy as long as possible. They would make the attackers pay for every meter of ground. And most importantly, they would buy time for Earth to send help. Every human colony had hidden weapon stockpiles. Every colonist received basic combat training, disguised as emergency response education. Every building was designed with defensive positions in mind. It was all hidden in plain sight. The galaxy thought humans were peaceful farmers and merchants, and for 300 years humans had been peaceful. But they had not forgotten how to fight. Colonel Park saluted. "Understood, Governor. I'll begin deployment immediately." The next few hours were chaos. Sarah broadcast a message to the entire planet, trying to keep her voice calm. She told people to go to the shelters. She told them help was coming. She did not tell them that help might arrive too late. The alien ships, Sarah still did not know who they were, reached orbit around Demeter. They positioned themselves around the planet like a noose tightening around a neck. Then the bombardment began. The first strike hit the spaceport on the northern continent. The explosion was visible from space. Sarah watched on her monitors as the building where she had first landed on Demeter 20 years ago disappeared in a flash of light. More strikes followed. They were targeting infrastructure, power plants, communication hubs, government buildings. The aliens were systematic and efficient. They had done this before. Sarah's console finally picked up a transmission from the alien fleet. A face appeared on her screen. It was not human. The creature had gray skin, 4 eyes arranged in a diamond pattern, and a mouth that looked like it had too many teeth. "Primitive species," the alien said. Its voice was translated by the computer into flat, emotionless English. "You are now property of the Crethian Collective. Surrender immediately and you will be processed for labor assignments. Resist and you will be eliminated. You have 1 hour to respond." The transmission ended. Sarah stared at the blank screen. Her hands had stopped shaking. She felt a strange calm settle over her. She finally understood what was happening. These aliens, these Crethians, thought humanity was weak. They thought humans would surrender without a fight. They were wrong. She opened a channel to Colonel Park. "How many people made it to the shelters?" "About 90%, ma'am. The rest are in transit or volunteering for defense positions." "Good. Distribute the weapons from the Ember stockpiles. Organize everyone into defensive units. And Colonel, send a message on the quantum channel. The quantum channel was different from normal FTL communication. It was slower, harder to detect, and almost impossible to jam. Every human colony had one, connected directly to Earth Command. The Crethians did not know about it. What should the message say? Colonel Park asked. Sarah thought for a moment. She thought about the 2 million people on her planet. She thought about the children in the shelters scared and crying. She thought about the farmers who had come here to build a peaceful life. Tell Earth what's happening. Tell them we're activating Ember Protocol. And tell them, she paused, tell them to remember Demeter. Colonel Park nodded slowly. They'll come, Governor. I know they will. I know, Sarah agreed. But we need to survive until they do. How long can we hold? Colonel Park did not answer immediately. He was running calculations in his head. If we use every advantage we have, if we fight smart and use the terrain, maybe 30 days, maybe less. Then we hold for 30 days, Sarah said firmly. Make them pay for every single day. The hour passed. Sarah did not respond to the Crethian ultimatum. Instead, she sent a transmission on every frequency, making sure the Crethians heard it. She wanted them to have a record of this moment. To the Crethian Collective, she said, staring directly into the camera. You have attacked a peaceful colony without provocation. You have killed innocent people. You have made a terrible mistake. We will not surrender. We will fight you with everything we have, and when our people come, and they will come, you will regret ever hearing the name Demeter. She ended the transmission and turned to her staff. Get to your positions. Make me proud. The Crethian response was immediate. 80,000 troops began landing across the planet. They came in massive dropships, shaking the ground as they descended. They wore armor and carried weapons that glowed with deadly energy. The humans met them with hunting rifles and homemade explosives. The first Crethian troops landed near New Harare. They expected to find frightened civilians hiding in their homes. Instead, they found empty streets and silent buildings. Then the shooting started. Humans fired from windows, from rooftops, from underground tunnels. They used sniper rifles to target Crethian officers. They used drones rigged with explosives. They collapsed buildings on top of advancing troops. The Crethians were confused. They had conquered 500 worlds. They had defeated thousands of species. Those species had always surrendered quickly or died quickly. These humans were doing neither. By the end of the first day, 3,000 Crethians were dead or wounded. They had barely advanced into the city. Their commander, a veteran warrior named Thekmol, stared at the casualty reports in disbelief. How is this possible? He demanded of his officers. They are primitives. They have basic weapons. Why are they not broken? His officers had no answers. They had followed standard Crethian invasion doctrine. It should have worked. It always worked. But the humans were not following anyone's doctrine. They were fighting like cornered animals. No, worse than that. Animals knew when to give up. These humans did not seem to understand the concept of surrender. On the second day, the Crethians changed tactics. They brought in heavy weapons and began destroying entire blocks of the city. If humans wanted to hide in buildings, the Crethians would simply remove the buildings. The humans adapted. They retreated into the tunnel systems under the city. They launched hit-and-run attacks from the sewers. They set traps in the rubble. On the fifth day, a Crethian supply depot exploded. Investigation revealed that an elderly human woman had walked up to the guards, smiled at them, and detonated a bomb vest. The guards had assumed she was surrendering. On the 10th day, Crethian casualties passed 10,000. Thekmol requested reinforcements. Across the planet, the story was the same. Human colonists fought with whatever they had. Farmers used their tractors as improvised tanks. Factory workers turned their machinery into weapons. Teachers organized ambushes. Children ran messages and supplies through tunnels too small for adult soldiers. The Crethians could not understand it. Why would a species fight so hard when defeat was inevitable? Why would they not accept their fate? They did not understand that humans remembered their own history. Every human child learned about the Alamo, where defenders held against impossible odds. They learned about Thermopylae, where 300 warriors stopped an army. They learned about Stalingrad and Leningrad and every other time humans had refused to surrender. Those were not just stories to humans. They were lessons. They were instructions for what to do when someone came to take your home. By the 15th day, the Crethians controlled most of the planet's surface. But they were learning that controlling territory and defeating the enemy were two different things. The humans were still fighting. They had retreated into the mountains, into the forests, into underground bunkers, and they were still killing Crethians every single day. Tekmal intercepted a human radio transmission. It was a man's voice, weak and broken, probably dying.
Katie, if you're listening to this,
I'm sorry I won't make it home, but I want you to know something. I want you to remember. They came to our world. They thought we would be easy. They were wrong. We stood, we fought. And when help comes, because it will come, they'll find that we didn't make it easy. Remember Demeter, sweetheart. Remember that your father stood. The transmission ended. Tekmal felt something he had never experienced in 40 years of conquest. It took him a moment to identify the feeling. It was doubt. On the 20th day, more Crethian reinforcements arrived. 40,000 fresh troops eager to finish this battle and claim their glory. They found exhausted human defenders, low on ammunition and supplies, still fighting. On the 28th day, Tekmal stood on a hill overlooking what remained of New Harare. 90% of the planet was under Crethian control, but that last 10% was costing him hundreds of lives every day. His communication officer approached. Sir, we're detecting unusual readings at the edge of the system. What kind of readings? Multiple FTL signatures. Large ones, sir. I think it's the human fleet. Tekmal felt his blood turn cold. He had sent a message to the Collective 3 days ago, requesting immediate extraction. He had tried to explain that something was wrong, that these humans were not normal prey. The Collective had not responded. Now it was too late. How many ships? Tekmal asked quietly. The officer checked his instruments. Sensors are counting 400 contacts. They're military vessels. Heavy cruisers, destroyers, and... Sir, that's a dreadnought-class ship. I didn't know humans had dreadnoughts. Tekmal looked up at the sky. Somewhere up there, the human fleet was arriving. Somewhere up there, his own fleet was about to engage them. He looked back at the city. At the rubble where 2 million humans had lived. At the fortifications where thousands still fought even after 30 days of hell. He finally understood the truth. The Collective had made a mistake. They had attacked a species they did not understand. They had assumed humans were like all the others, soft, weak, ready to submit. But humans were not prey. They were predators who had learned to live in peace, and the Crethians had reminded them how to hunt. All units, Tekmal ordered. Prepare for defensive positions. The real battle is about to begin. In her command bunker deep underground, Governor Sarah Okonkwo received a message on her console. It was from Colonel Park. Governor, the Terran Expeditionary Fleet has arrived. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen is in command. They're engaging the Crethian orbital forces now. Sarah closed her eyes. Tears ran down her face. They had done it. They had held for 30 days. 780,000 colonists had died. Cities had been destroyed. Farmland had been burned. But they had held. She opened her eyes and activated her microphone, broadcasting to every surviving human on the planet. People of Demeter, she said. Her voice was hoarse from smoke and exhaustion. Help has arrived. Our fleet is here. We held, we survived. And now they're going to learn what happens when you attack humanity. Above the planet, the battle had begun. Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the TES Indomitable, watching the tactical display with cold eyes. The Dreadnought-class warship was the pride of the Terran Navy. 5 kilometers of weapons and armor that had never seen real combat. Until today. Status report, he ordered crisply. His tactical officer, Commander Lisa Torres, checked her screens. 412 ships reporting ready, Admiral. All weapon systems are charged and locked. The Crethian orbital fleet is moving to intercept. I count 63 enemy vessels. They actually think they can win, Chen said quietly. There was no emotion in his voice. He had watched the recordings from Demeter. He had seen the destroyed cities. He had read the casualty reports. 780,000 dead. He had also watched the intercepted Crethian communications. He had heard them laughing about how easy the conquest would be. How pathetic the human resistance was. How profitable the slaves would be. The Crethians had made 2 mistakes. First, they had attacked humanity. Second, they had done it in a way that gave humans time to respond. Chen was about to make sure they never made a 3rd mistake. Open a channel to the Crethian fleet. All frequencies. Channel open, sir. Chen leaned forward slightly. To the Crethian collective forces. This is Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. You have 30 seconds to begin evacuation procedures and abandon Demeter orbit. Any ship that remains after that time will be considered hostile and destroyed. You have 30 seconds starting now. He closed the channel and turned to his weapons officer. Lieutenant Kim, prepare firing solutions for every Crethian ship in orbit. Solutions plotted and locked. Sir? Good. Count down from 30. The bridge was silent except for the quiet beeping of consoles. Chen watched the tactical display. The Crethian ships were not moving. They were actually positioning themselves for battle. They really thought they could win. 20 seconds, Lieutenant Kim announced. Sir, Commander Torres said carefully. They're powering up weapons. They're not going to withdraw. I know, Chen replied. He had expected this. The Crethians were used to other species being afraid of them. They probably thought the human fleet would back down once they showed force. 10 seconds. Chen allowed himself a small, cold smile. The Crethians were about to learn something important about humans. When humans made a threat, they followed through. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Time's up, Admiral. Fire everything, Chen ordered. Eliminate the Crethian fleet. The bridge of the Indomitable shook slightly as its massive railguns fired. The other 399 ships in the Terran fleet opened fire at the same moment. The space around Demeter lit up like a sun was being born. The Crethians had shields. Every spacefaring species had shields. They were designed to deflect energy weapons and absorb plasma fire. They worked very well against the standard weapons used by most galactic civilizations. Humans did not use standard weapons. Human railguns fired solid metal projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed. Human missiles carried nuclear warheads and antimatter charges. Human ships launched clouds of small drones that swarmed enemy vessels like metal piranhas. The Crethian shields had no idea what to do with any of it. The first volley destroyed 18 Crethian ships outright. They simply disintegrated, torn apart by kinetic impacts that hit with the force of small asteroids. The Crethians returned fire. Their plasma lances and energy beams struck the human fleet. 3 human destroyers took hits. Their shields absorbed most of the damage, but one ship reported casualties. Chen watched the tactical display update. Casualties? Destroyer Roosevelt reports 4 dead, 12 wounded. Ship is still combat capable. Continue firing. Do not let up. The battle lasted 10 minutes. The Crethians fought hard. They were experienced warriors with advanced technology. They used their numerical advantage, which only lasted for the first minute, and attempted tactical maneuvers. None of it mattered. The human fleet moved like a living thing. Ships covered each other, synchronized their fire, and adapted to enemy tactics in real time. When Crethian vessels tried to outflank them, human picket ships appeared from nowhere to block them. When the Crethians concentrated their fire on single targets, the human ships simply absorbed the punishment and kept fighting. Chen had spent 2 years training this fleet. He had studied every battle humanity had ever fought, from ancient naval warfare to the last wars before Earth's unification. He had built a military force that combined 3,000 years of human military experience with modern technology. The Crethians had never faced anything like it. By the 6th minute, 40 Crethian ships had been destroyed. The rest were trying to retreat, their commanders finally realizing they could not win. Chen did not let them run. All ships, pursuit pattern Delta, cut off their escape vectors. I want every single ship that participated in the bombardment of Demeter. The human fleet surged forward. Fast attack ships and destroyers moved ahead, blocking the Crethians' escape routes. The heavier cruisers and battleships followed, pouring fire into the trapped enemy vessels. Sir, Commander Torres said, we're receiving surrender requests from 16 Crethian ships. Chen's jaw tightened. He thought about Governor Okonkwo's transmission, begging the Crethians for mercy. He thought about the elderly woman who had used herself as a bomb because she had nothing else left to fight with. Inform them that we will accept their surrender after their weapons are disabled and their crews are in escape pods. Any ship that still has active weapons will be destroyed. It was more mercy than the Crethians had shown Demeter. By minute 10, it was over. 63 Crethian ships had entered the battle. 63 ships were now either destroyed or disabled. The human fleet had lost 1 destroyer. It had taken a direct hit to its reactor and suffered damage to 14 other ships. Chen allowed himself to relax slightly. The first part was done. Now came the hard part. Launch all dropships and assault transports. Begin ground operations. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Any Crethian unit that does not surrender immediately is to be neutralized. And Commander, yes sir? Make sure our troops know. The colonists down there have been fighting for 30 days. They're tired, they're hurt, and they're angry. We coordinate with them, not over them. Governor Okonkwo is still in command of her planet. Understood, sir. The first wave of Terran Marines launched toward Demeter. 50,000 of humanity's finest soldiers, all volunteers who had begged for the chance to be part of this operation. Everyone in the fleet had seen the recordings from Demeter. Everyone wanted to make the Crethians pay. Captain James Rodriguez led the first Marine company to land near New Harare. His company was made up of veterans, men and women who had trained for combat, but never expected to see real war. Humanity had been at peace for so long, but every human soldier trained for war anyway. Because humans remembered their history, they remembered that peace only lasted as long as people were willing to fight for it. The dropship shook as it entered the atmosphere. Rodriguez checked his armor seals and weapon charge one more time. Through the small window, he could see the surface of Demeter approaching. What had once been beautiful farmland was now a scarred wasteland. Craters dotted the landscape. Cities were reduced to rubble. Forest had been burned. Rodriguez felt rage building in his chest. He forced it down. Rage was useful, but discipline won battles. The dropship landed hard. The rear ramp dropped and Rodriguez led his Marines out at a run. They were in the outskirts of New Harare, or what was left of it. Immediately, gunfire erupted from a nearby building. Rodriguez's armor registered multiple impacts. He turned and fired back, his rifle's computer-guided rounds finding their targets with precision. 3 Crethian soldiers dropped. The rest scattered, looking for cover. "Contact front," Rodriguez shouted. "Light them up!" His Marines spread out in textbook formation, finding cover and returning fire. The Crethians were still using the same tactics they had used against the colonists. Overwhelming force, direct assaults, assuming their enemy would break. The Terran Marines did not break. Rodriguez watched his tactical display as his soldiers maneuvered through the ruins. They moved fast, covered each other, and maintained constant communication. They had trained for urban combat on 100 different worlds. This was what they were built for. Within 5 minutes, the Crethian position was overrun. 12 enemy soldiers were dead. 5 were captured. Rodriguez's radio crackled. "Captain, this is Sergeant Chen. We've made contact with colonial survivors. They're in a fortified position 2 blocks west of your position. On our way." Rodriguez led his company through the destroyed streets. They encountered 2 more Crethian units. Both times the Crethians tried to stand and fight. Both times they were wiped out in minutes. The difference between Terran Marines and colonial militia was like the difference between a thunderstorm and a hurricane. The colonists had fought bravely with what they had. The Marines fought with the best equipment, training, and experience that humanity could provide. The colonial position was a half-collapsed apartment building surrounded by makeshift barricades. Rodriguez could see weapons pointing at him from every window. He activated his external speakers. Friendly forces approaching. "We're Terran Marines. We're here to help." For a long moment, nothing happened. Then a ragged figure appeared at one of the windows. It was a woman, covered in dust and dried blood, holding a rifle that looked like it had been assembled from spare parts. "Prove it," she called down. Rodriguez smiled inside his helmet. These people had been fighting for a month. They were not going to trust anyone easily. He removed his helmet, showing his face. "Captain James Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion, Terran Marine Corps. Fleet Admiral Chen sent us. Governor Okonkwo is still in command. We're here to finish what you started." The woman stared at him for a moment. Then she lowered her weapon. "Lisa Park, I was a teacher before all this. Now I'm—" She laughed bitterly. "I don't know what I am now." "You're a survivor," Rodriguez said firmly. "How many with you?" 43. We started with 200. Rodriguez felt his rage building again. He pushed it down. "Can you fight?" "We've been fighting for 30 days. We can fight for 30 more if we have to." "You won't have to. We're here now. But if you can fight, we can use you. We know the tactics and have the weapons. You know the terrain and where the enemy is concentrated. Together we end this today." Lisa Park looked at her fellow survivors. They were tired, hurt, and half-starved. But when Rodriguez said they could end this today, he saw something spark in their eyes. Hope. And anger. "Tell us what you need," she said. Over the next 6 hours, the Terran Marines systematically cleared Demeter of Crethian forces. They worked in coordination with colonial survivors, using local knowledge to find every enemy position. The Crethians tried to regroup and mount a defense. They sent their best units forward. They used their heaviest weapons. It did not matter. The Terran Marines were professionals fighting alongside people defending their homes. It was the most dangerous combination in the galaxy. Commander Thekmal watched from his command post as his forces collapsed. In 30 days of fighting colonists, he had lost 31,000 troops. In 6 hours of fighting the Terran military, he had lost another 40,000. He finally understood the truth. The colonists had not been weak. They had been civilians, fighting with civilian weapons, and they had still held for 30 days. The soldiers, the real soldiers, were something else entirely. His communication officer approached. "Sir, all forward positions have been overrun. We have reports of mass surrenders on every continent. We've lost contact with the Southern Command completely." Thekmal looked at his tactical display. It was a sea of red indicators showing Crethian units being destroyed or surrendering. In one corner of the screen he could see green indicators, human forces spreading across the planet like a flood. "Sir, what are your orders?" Thekmal was old enough to recognize when a battle was lost. "Sound the general retreat. All units are to surrender to the nearest human force. Make sure they understand. We are beaten." "Yes, sir." Thekmal disconnected his weapon harness and walked out of his command post. A group of Terran Marines spotted him immediately. Their weapons snapped up, trained on his chest. A human officer approached. He was not wearing a helmet. His face was hard, his eyes cold. "Commander Thekmal?" the officer asked. "Yes, I am surrendering myself and all forces under my command." The human officer nodded slowly. "Captain Rodriguez, 3rd Battalion Marines. You're going to come with me. There's someone who wants to meet you." They took him through the ruins of New Harare. Thekmal saw Crethian soldiers everywhere, sitting with their weapons beside them, guarded by humans. He saw human soldiers moving with purpose, securing positions, treating wounded, both human and Crethian. He saw colonial survivors watching him pass. Their faces showed hate, grief, exhaustion, but also something else, victory. They took him to a bunker entrance. Inside, he was brought to a command center. A human woman waited there, standing despite obvious exhaustion. She wore civilian clothes that were torn and stained. Her face was drawn, her eyes hard. "Commander Thekmal," she said quietly. "I'm Governor Sarah Okonkwo. Welcome to Demeter, or what's left of it." Another human entered the room. This one wore a military uniform decorated with symbols that indicated high rank. He was older, with gray hair and a face that had seen many things. "I'm Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen," the man said. "Commander Thekmal, you are responsible for the deaths of 780,000 human civilians. You ordered the bombardment of population centers. You refused offers of surrender. You treated this world as yours to take." Thekmal said nothing. What could he say? Everything the human stated was true. "My fleet is currently in orbit around your world. My soldiers control this planet. I have the power to do to the Crethian Collective exactly what you tried to do here." Chen paused. "Tell me, Commander, what do you think I should do?" Thekmal met the Admiral's eyes. "You should destroy us. That is what we would do. That is what we have always done." Chen nodded slowly. "You're right. That is what you would do. But Commander, we're not you." He pulled up a star chart on a nearby display. It showed Crethian space with multiple systems marked in red. "This is your empire. These are your worlds. And right now my fleet is plotting a course to visit every single one of them. Not to conquer, not to enslave, but to make sure you never do this again to anyone." Chen turned back to Thekmal. "You wanted to see what humans do when cornered? Congratulations. Now you're going to see what we do when we're angry. And Commander, we're very, very angry." Thekmal felt fear for the first time in his life. Not fear of death, fear of something worse. He had attacked humanity thinking they were prey. He had been wrong. They were not prey. They were not even predators. They were something the galaxy had never seen before. They were warriors who knew mercy but chose justice instead. And justice, Thekmal realized, was far more terrifying than simple revenge. The Galactic Council chamber was in chaos. Ambassador Tirnal of the Velpari Confederacy stood at his podium, his forearms gesturing frantically. The humans are violating every convention of warfare. They have invaded Crethian space without council approval. This cannot be allowed. Ambassador Chen Kai sat calmly at the human observer station. Humanity had never joined the Galactic Council. They had been invited 3 times and declined 3 times. They preferred to stay independent. Now, looking at the panicking ambassadors around him, Chen Kai understood why his predecessors had made that choice. Ambassador Chen, the council speaker said. The speaker was a Valdari, a species so old that nobody remembered where they came from originally. The council demands an explanation. Your fleet has entered Crethian space. Your military is attacking Crethian colonies. The Crethians are calling for council intervention. Chen Kai stood slowly. He was an old man, retired from Earth's diplomatic corps specifically to take this thankless position. He had been watching the council's response or lack of response to the Demeter attack for the past 30 days. Honorable Council, he said quietly. Humanity acknowledges your concern. However, we did not sign your warfare conventions. We are not bound by rules we never agreed to follow. That is irrelevant, Tirnal shouted. You cannot simply... The Crethian collective invaded a human colony world, Chen Kai continued, his voice cutting through the noise. They killed 780,000 civilians. They bombarded cities. They refused all offers of surrender. For 30 days the Galactic Council watched and did nothing. The chamber fell silent. The council issued 3 statements of concern, Chen Kai said, reading from his tablet. 3 statements. While human civilians died by the thousands, the council wrote statements. While children were buried under rubble, the council debated proper procedure. While my people fought with farming equipment against a military invasion, the council decided to form a subcommittee to investigate. He looked around the chamber. Many ambassadors avoided his eyes. So yes, humanity is attacking the Crethian collective. We are doing what the council should have done 30 days ago. We are ensuring they cannot do this again, and we will not stop until that mission is complete. This is madness, another ambassador called out. The Crethians are a powerful empire. You will start a galactic war. We did not start anything, Chen Kai replied coldly. The Crethians started this when they attacked Demeter. We are simply finishing it. The council speaker raised his hand for silence. Ambassador Chen, the council cannot condone. The council's opinion is noted. Chen Kai interrupted. He knew it was rude, but he did not care. However, humanity will continue its current military operations. When we are satisfied that the Crethian threat has been neutralized, we will withdraw. Not before. He sat down, indicating the conversation was over. The council erupted in arguments. Chen Kai ignored them. He had already received his orders from Earth. Humanity was done asking permission. 300 light-years away, Fleet Admiral Marcus Chen was thinking the same thing. His fleet had divided into 3 task forces. Each was hitting a different part of Crethian space. The strategy was simple. Move fast, hit hard, and show the galaxy what the Crethians really were. Chen commanded the main task force personally, heading straight for the heart of Crethian territory. His first target was a colony world called Crethvar, one of the oldest Crethian settlements outside their home system. Intelligence reports said Crethvar was home to slave processing centers. Newly conquered species were brought here, sorted and distributed throughout the empire. It was, essentially, a massive concentration camp disguised as a colony. Chen's fleet dropped out of FTL at the edge of the system. As expected, there was a defensive fleet waiting, 80 Crethian warships. All ships, engage at will. Remember the rules of engagement. Avoid civilian casualties if possible, but prioritize our own forces. The battle was even shorter than the one over Demeter. The Crethian defenders fought bravely, but they were fighting against an enemy who had spent 30 days learning every weakness in Crethian tactics. Within 20 minutes, the orbital defense was gone. Chen opened a channel to the planet below. Crethian military forces on Crethvar. This is Fleet Admiral Chen of the Terran military. You have 1 hour to evacuate all non-military personnel from your military installations. After that, we will begin bombardment. Any civilian areas will not be targeted. Any military installation that attempts to use civilians as shields will be considered a war crime. and its commanders will be held personally accountable. He meant every word. Humans had learned from their own brutal history. They knew what happened when armies abandoned ethics. They would not become what they were fighting against. The Crethian military on the surface did not surrender. They prepared for battle. But they did evacuate civilians from their bases. Even they understood that the humans were serious about the war crimes threat. The bombardment was precise and limited. Chen's ships used kinetic strikes to destroy military installations, communication hubs, and spaceports. They avoided the civilian areas where the slaves were kept. Then the Marines landed. Colonel Sarah Okonkwo, the governor's younger sister who had joined the military 20 years ago, led the first assault team. Her target was the main slave processing center, a massive complex in the planet's northern region. The Crethian guards fought hard, but they were not prepared for Terran Marines equipped with full assault gear. The battle for the complex lasted 3 hours. When it was over, the guards were dead or captured. Sarah stood in the main courtyard of the complex looking at what the Crethians had built. Row after row of cages, each holding dozens of beings from species she did not recognize. The conditions were horrific. No sanitation, minimal food, no medical care. "Get medical teams down here immediately," she ordered, "and find me whoever was in charge of this place." They found him an hour later hiding in an underground bunker. His name was Krelthor, and he was the facility administrator. Sarah had him brought to the courtyard in front of all the cages. "Do you speak English?" she asked. Krelthor activated his translator. "Yes, I demand treatment according to the Galactic Convention on Prisoners." "You're not a prisoner of war," Sarah interrupted. "You're a slaver. You're going to be tried for crimes against sentient beings. But first you're going to help us free every single being in this facility. They are property of the collective." Sarah's rifle snapped up, aimed at his face. "They are people, and you're going to help free them, or I'm going to leave you in one of these cages while we broadcast to the galaxy what you did here. Let your victims decide your fate." Krelthor looked at the cages, at the beings watching him with hate in their eyes, beings he had tortured, starved, and abused for years. He suddenly realized that a human military tribunal might be the best outcome he could hope for. "I will cooperate," he said quietly. Over the next week, Sarah's team freed over 200,000 slaves from Krethvar. They were from 17 different species. Most had been prisoners for years. Some had been born in captivity. The Terran military set up temporary shelters, provided food and medical care, and began the long process of figuring out where everyone was from. Fleet Admiral Chen had brought civilian specialists for exactly this purpose: linguists, doctors, psychologists, logistics experts, and he made sure everything was recorded and broadcast to the galaxy. The Galactic Council could ignore statements. They could not ignore footage of Crethian slave camps. They could not ignore interviews with freed prisoners who told stories of generations of abuse. Chen made sure every news network in the galaxy had access to the footage. He wanted everyone to see what the Crethians really were. The second target was a mining colony called Theknar. The third was a military shipyard at Krelvas. The fourth was an agricultural world named Vorntal. At each world, the pattern was the same. The human fleet would arrive, destroy the military defenses, and land ground forces. They would free any slaves they found. They would disable the planet's military capability. And they would broadcast everything to the galaxy. Chen was not trying to conquer the Crethian Empire. He was trying to dismantle it. After the liberation of Vorntal, something unexpected happened. The planet's population, mostly Harani, a species that had been enslaved for 200 years, asked if they could help. "Help with what?" Chen asked the Harani delegation. "Help free our people on other worlds," the lead Harani replied. His name was Vorn, which was apparently a common name among his people. "We know where other Harani are held. We know the facility layouts. We can fight." Chen considered this carefully. "If you join us, you'll be fighting against the Crethians. You'll be risking your lives. You just gained your freedom. Are you sure you want to risk it?" Vorn's translator conveyed something that might have been a laugh. "Admiral Chen, we have been slaves for 200 years. We have dreamed of revenge for 200 years. You have given us a chance to actually achieve it. Yes, we are sure." Chen made a decision that would change the campaign. "All right. We'll train you, equip you, and you'll fight alongside human forces. But you'll follow human rules of engagement. No massacres, no war crimes, no revenge killing of civilians. Can you agree to that?" Vorn looked at his fellow Harani. They spoke quietly among themselves. Finally, he turned back to Chen. We agree. Show us how to fight like humans. Within 2 weeks, the first Harani volunteer battalions were ready. They were trained by Terran Marines and equipped with human weapons. When the fleet moved to the next target, the Harani came with them. Word spread quickly. Other freed species began volunteering. The Velpari, the Sortak, the Grendi, every species the Crethians had enslaved wanted their turn to fight back. Chen's fleet was becoming something else. It was not just a human military force anymore. It was becoming a liberation army. By the second month of the campaign, the Crethian Empire was in chaos. 6 major colonies had been liberated. Dozens of smaller installations had been destroyed. Over 1 million slaves had been freed, and the Crethian military was learning a terrible truth. They had built an empire on fear and overwhelming force. When facing an enemy that did not fear them and could match their force, they had no idea what to do. The Crethian High Command held an emergency meeting. The Supreme Commander, an ancient warrior named Rekthor, looked at the strategic maps with growing horror. How many ships have we lost? He asked his staff. Total losses are at 473 vessels, Supreme Commander. We have an additional 200 ships too damaged to fight. And the humans. They have lost 18 ships. Rekthor's mandibles clicked in distress. The numbers made no sense. The Crethians had superior numbers, comparable technology, and thousands of years of conquest experience, but the humans were winning every single engagement. What about the liberated colonies? Rekthor asked. They are establishing their own governments. The humans are providing security but not taking control. They appear to be leaving the worlds to govern themselves. This confused Rekthor even more. They are not conquering? Not claiming the territory? No, Supreme Commander. They free the slaves, destroy our military installations, and move on to the next target. They are not building an empire. They are destroying ours. Rekthor finally understood the human strategy. They were not trying to replace the Crethian Empire with their own. They were trying to ensure the Crethians could never threaten anyone again. What is their current course? The tactical officer pulled up a star chart. A line showed the human fleet's projected path. It led directly to Cre Prime, the Crethian homeworld. Supreme Commander, at their current rate of advance, they will reach our home system in 30 days. Rekthor looked at the map for a long time. 50,000 years of Crethian history, 50,000 years of conquest and dominance, and now a species they had dismissed as primitive was going to bring it all to an end. Recall all fleets, he ordered. Every ship, every soldier. Bring them home. We make our stand at Cre Prime. Sir, that will leave dozens of colonies undefended. Those colonies are already lost, Rekthor said. We cannot fight the humans everywhere. We can only hope to stop them at our home. Recall, everyone. This is our last chance. The order went out across the Empire. Every Crethian military asset began moving toward the homeworld. They were gathering the largest fleet in Crethian history, over 2,000 warships. It would be the greatest battle the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. Fleet Admiral Chen received intelligence reports about the Crethian fleet buildup. His staff was worried. Sir, they're gathering everything they have. We'll be outnumbered 5 to 1, maybe more. Chen studied the reports calmly. Good. Let them bring everything. Better to face them all at once than chase them across the galaxy for years. But Admiral, the odds, Chen interrupted, said that Demeter would fall in 3 days. The colonists held for 30. The odds said we would lose dozens of ships taking Krethvar. We lost 2. The odds have been wrong about humanity since this whole thing started. He looked at his staff. We're going to Cre Prime. We're going to face their entire fleet. And we're going to win. Because we're not just fighting for revenge. We're fighting to make sure no other species ever has to suffer what the Crethians have done. That's worth any odds. The fleet set course for Cre Prime. Behind them, a trail of liberated worlds began the slow process of rebuilding. Ahead of them, the entire Crethian military waited. The final battle was coming. The Cre Prime system had never seen this many ships gathered in one place. Supreme Commander Rekthor stood in the command center of the Eternal Dominion, the largest warship in the Crethian fleet. Around his flagship, 2,147 warships held position in a defensive formation that had taken days to perfect. Every ship in the Crethian Empire that could still fight was here. Every soldier that could hold a weapon. Every weapon that could still fire. This was everything the Crethians had built over 50,000 years of conquest. Status of the defensive platforms? Frekthor asked. All 300 orbital defense platforms are active and armed, Supreme Commander. The minefield around the outer system is deployed. Long-range sensors are at maximum sensitivity. And the planetary shields? Active over all major cities and military installations. If the humans try bombardment, we can hold for weeks. Frekthor nodded. He had prepared the best defense possible. Now he waited for the humans to arrive. He did not have to wait long. Supreme Commander, we have FTL signatures at the system's edge. Multiple contacts. It's them. How many ships? The sensor officer recalculated several times as if not believing the numbers. I count 412 human vessels and, Supreme Commander, there are additional contacts. Different signatures. I'm detecting Harani ships, Velpari ships, Sortak vessels. The humans have brought an allied fleet. Total numbers? Approximately 600 ships total, sir. Frekthor felt a surge of confidence. 600 versus 2,000. The humans were outnumbered more than 3 to 1. Even with their superior tactics, that was an advantage they could not overcome. All ships prepare for battle. Hold formation. Let them come to us. On the bridge of the Indomitable, Fleet Admiral Chen watched the tactical display. The Crethian fleet was massive, organized in a layered defensive formation around the planet. It was a smart setup. Any attacking force would have to punch through multiple defensive lines while under fire from the orbital platforms. Sir, we're receiving transmissions from the Galactic Council. They're demanding we stand down. Ignore them, Chen replied. Tactical assessment, Commander Torres? Commander Torres studied her screens. They have a strong defensive position. The minefield will slow our approach. The orbital platforms give them an artillery advantage. And their numbers, she shook her head. Sir, this is going to be costly. I know, Chen said quietly. He had known this moment would come. He had prepared for it. But we're not backing down now. Not after coming this far. He opened a fleet-wide channel. All ships, this is Admiral Chen, I won't lie to you. The Crethians have gathered their entire military. We're outnumbered badly. Some of us won't make it home today. He paused, thinking about Demeter, about the colonists who had held for 30 days, about the millions of slaves who had suffered for generations. But we're not here for easy battles. We're here to end a threat that has terrorized the galaxy for 50,000 years. We're here to make sure no other world suffers what Demeter suffered. We're here to prove that bullies can be beaten. That might does not make right, and that humans stand up for what's right no matter the cost. He took a breath. I'm proud to serve with all of you. Now let's go finish this. All ships advance. Operation Hammer begins now. The Terran fleet surged forward, but they were not advancing in a standard formation. Chen had learned from every battle in human history. He knew that sometimes, unconventional tactics were the ones that won. The human fleet split into 7 separate groups, each moving on a different vector. They were not attacking the Crethian formation directly. They were surrounding it. Supreme Commander, the humans are dispersing. They're trying to encircle us. Frekthor watched the tactical display with growing confusion. That makes no sense. They're spreading their forces thin. Each group can be defeated individually. Should we advance to engage them? Frekthor considered. If he moved to attack one group, the others could attack his rear. But if he stayed in formation, he could not bring his full firepower to bear. Hold position. Let them come to us. Our defensive formation is strong. Make them pay for every meter they advance. The first human battle group reached the minefield. The Crethians expected them to slow down, to carefully clear a path. Instead, the humans accelerated. They sent forward a wave of small, fast ships, corvettes and frigates that moved with insane speed. The mines detected them and detonated. Dozens of small human ships were destroyed in brilliant explosions, but they had cleared a path. The larger ships behind them poured through the gap. They're sacrificing their own ships, one Crethian officer exclaimed. No, Frekthor said slowly. They're spending assets to achieve an objective. They knew some ships would be lost clearing the mines. They accepted the cost. It was brutal mathematics. It was also devastatingly effective. The first human battle group engaged the outer defensive line. Kinetic rounds and missile salvos hammered into the Crethian ships. The Crethians returned fire, their plasma weapons cutting through space. Ships on both sides began to die. But while the Crethians were focused on the first group, The other 6 human battle groups were completing their encirclement. Shen had baited the Crethians into committing to one fight while he moved the rest of his forces into position. All battle groups, weapons free, engage at will. The Crethian formation suddenly found itself under attack from 7 different directions. Their defensive advantage disappeared. Their numerical superiority meant less when they could not concentrate their fire. The battle descended into chaos. Captain Maria Santos commanded the destroyer TES Relentless. Her ship was part of Battle Group 3, attacking the Crethian formation from above the orbital plane. Her target was one of the orbital defense platforms. All weapons focus fire on that platform. I want it gone. The Relentless and 3 other destroyers hammered the platform with everything they had. The platform's shields held for the first minute, but sustained fire eventually wore them down. The platform exploded in a massive fireball. Next target, another platform 2,000 kilometers to our port side. Captain, we have Crethian cruisers moving to intercept. Evasive maneuvers. All ships stay together and keep firing. We need to take down these platforms. The Relentless twisted through space, dodging plasma fire from the Crethian cruisers. One shot clipped her port side and the ship shuddered. Damage report. Port armor compromised. Shield generators at 60%. We're still combat capable. Santos gritted her teeth. Keep firing. We're not backing down. All across the battlefield, similar scenes played out. Human ships took damage but kept fighting. They protected each other, covered retreats, and coordinated their fire with precision. The Crethians fought hard, but they were fighting the way they always had, with overwhelming force and direct assaults. It had worked for 50,000 years. It was not working today. Commander Vorn led the Harani volunteer ships in Battle Group 5. His people had trained for 8 weeks with human instructors. They had smaller ships and less advanced weapons than the humans, but they had something more important. They had a reason to fight. All Harani ships follow me. We're going after that carrier. The Crethian carrier was a massive vessel, carrying hundreds of fighter craft. It was a priority target. Vorn's squadron of 20 small ships accelerated toward it. Crethian fighters launched to intercept. The battle turned into a swirling dogfight. Vorn's people had learned human tactics. Stay mobile, cover your wingmates, never stop moving. 3 Harani ships were destroyed, but they took down 12 Crethian fighters and put enough missiles into the carrier to cripple it. This is for 200 years of slavery. Vorn shouted as he fired his last missile into the carrier's engines. The carrier began to drift, dead in space. Across the battle, the pattern repeated. The freed species fought with a fury the Crethians had never seen before. The humans fought with a level of tactical coordination the Crethians could not match, and together they were unstoppable. 4 hours into the battle, the Crethian formation began to collapse. Too many ships had been destroyed. Too many platforms were gone. The defensive lines that Rekthor had carefully prepared were shattered. Supreme Commander, we've lost over 800 ships. The humans have broken through our outer defense. They're advancing on the planet. Rekthor looked at the tactical display. It was a nightmare of red indicators showing destroyed or damaged Crethian vessels. The humans had lost ships too. The display showed almost 100 human vessels destroyed, but they were still advancing. How? Rekthor asked. How are they doing this? We have superior numbers. His tactical officer looked up from her console. Sir, I've been analyzing their tactics. They're not fighting like any other species. Every other species we've conquered fought to destroy our ships. The humans are fighting to achieve objectives. What do you mean? They're targeting our command ships, our carriers, our support vessels. They're not trying to kill as many of us as possible. They're trying to break our ability to fight as a coordinated force. Every move they make has a purpose. They're fighting like we're a puzzle to solve, not an enemy to simply overwhelm. Rekthor suddenly understood. The Crethians had built their military around the idea of overwhelming force. They had never needed strategy because they always had more ships, more soldiers, more weapons. The humans had built their military around the idea that they might be outnumbered. They had learned to win battles through superior tactics, coordination, and adaptability. And that made all the difference. Supreme Commander, the Eternal Dominion is being targeted. Multiple human ships are moving to engage us directly. Rekthor looked at the incoming ships. At their head was a massive dreadnought, the Indomitable. The humans were bringing their flagship to kill his. All remaining ships protect the Eternal Dominion. We cannot let... An explosion rocked the command center. Alarms blared. The lights flickered. We're hit! Kinetic round penetrated our shields. Multiple hull breaches. Shield generators are failing. Another impact. And another. The human ships were focusing all their fire on the flagship. Damage control teams, get those shields back up. We're trying, sir, but the third impact hit the command center directly. Vrekthor saw a flash of light, felt the impact, and then nothing. The Eternal Dominion, the pride of the Crethian fleet, broke apart. The explosion was visible across the entire battlefield. With the Supreme Commander dead and the flagship destroyed, the Crethian fleet lost its coordination. Individual ship captains began making their own decisions. Some tried to rally, some tried to retreat, some simply surrendered. The battle was over. Admiral Chen watched as the last pockets of Crethian resistance surrendered. The battle had lasted 14 hours. It was the longest, bloodiest battle in human history. Final casualties scrolled across his screen. 89 human ships destroyed. 3,200 human personnel killed. 15,000 wounded. The Allied forces, the Hurani, Velpari, and others, had lost 42 ships and over 2,000 fighters. The Crethians had lost 1,847 ships. Over 2 million Crethian military personnel were dead or missing. Chen felt the weight of those numbers. Every number was a life. Every ship had a crew. Every casualty had a family. But it had been necessary. He told himself that as he looked at the casualty reports. The Crethians had killed billions over 50,000 years. They had to be stopped. Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. It's from the Crethian matriarch. She's requesting to speak with you. Chen nodded. Put her through. The screen showed an elderly Crethian female. She looked tired, her mandibles drooping with age or grief. Admiral Chen, she said quietly. I am Matriarch Krensol, leader of the Crethian High Council. I am authorized to offer our unconditional surrender. I'm listening, Chen replied. Our fleet is destroyed. Our military is beaten. We cannot fight anymore. We ask only that you show mercy to our civilians. They did not choose this war. Chen studied her face. He saw fear there, but also resignation. She knew what humans could do to her world if they chose. Matriarch, humanity did not come here to commit genocide. We came to end a threat. Your military enslaved billions. It had to be stopped. But we're not interested in destroying your species. Then, what do you want? I want to land on your planet, Chen said. I want to meet with your High Council in person. And then I'm going to tell you exactly what happens next. 3 hours later, Chen landed on Cre Prime with a security detail of Marines. He was brought to the High Council chamber, a massive room built to intimidate visitors with its size and grandeur. Chen walked in wearing his combat uniform, still stained from the battle. He did not come to be impressed. He came to deliver terms. The High Council sat in a semicircle, 13 elderly Crethians who had ruled an empire. They looked at Chen with a mixture of fear and fascination. Members of the High Council, Chen began. The Crethian Empire is over. Your fleet is destroyed. Your military is scattered. Your 50,000 years of conquest end today. The only question is what happens next. What are your terms? Matriarch Krensol asked. Chen pulled out a data pad. You will immediately release every slave in your empire. Every single one. You will provide them with ships and supplies to return home or settle wherever they choose. You will pay reparations to every species you have enslaved. You will reduce your military to defensive forces only, supervised by human observers. You will open your space to Galactic Council inspectors, and you will never ever attempt another conquest. And if we refuse? One of the council members asked. Chen's expression did not change. Then I turn this entire planet into a monument to what happens when you threaten humanity. Your choice. The council members looked at each other. They had no real choice and they knew it. We accept, Krensol said. All of it. We accept. Chen nodded. Good. You have 90 days to begin implementation. Human observers will arrive within the week. And Matriarch? If you ever break these terms, we'll be back. And next time we won't be so generous. 6 months after the Battle of Cre Prime, Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood before the Galactic Council for the first time as humanity's official representative. The chamber was packed. Every major species in the galaxy had sent delegates. Everyone wanted to see what the humans would say. Elena was younger than most ambassadors, only 45 years old. She had been a military lawyer before this, prosecuting war crimes cases. That experience, she thought, made her perfectly suited for this moment. The council speaker, the ancient Valdari, gestured for her to approach the central podium. Ambassador Vasquez, the Council has invited humanity to apply for membership. We have also received petitions from the freed species, the Hurani, Velpari, Sortak, and others, requesting that humanity be granted a permanent council seat with special protections authority. Before we vote, the council would hear from humanity directly. Elena walked to the podium. She could feel every eye in the chamber on her. She carried a small case with her, which she set on the podium before speaking. Honorable council members, she began. 6 months ago, humanity was a minor spacefaring species that nobody paid much attention to. We had been in space for less than 200 years. We had never participated in galactic politics. We were, by galactic standards, insignificant. She paused, letting that sink in. Then the Crethian collective attacked our colony at Demeter. They killed 780,000 civilians. For 30 days, this council watched and did nothing. You issued statements. You formed committees. You debated proper procedure, but you did not act. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. Humanity learned something important during those 30 days. We learned that the galaxy has rules, but those rules only matter when someone is willing to enforce them. We learned that the strong can do whatever they want to the weak, unless someone stops them. Elena opened her case and pulled out a small object. It was a piece of rubble from New Harare on Demeter, preserved in clear polymer. This is from my home city. I grew up on Demeter. My parents died in the first bombardment. My sister died fighting in the ruins of our elementary school. I survived because I was off-world at the time, working for the Terran Justice Department. She set the rubble on the podium where everyone could see it. When I heard what happened, I wanted revenge. I wanted to see the Crethians destroyed. I wanted them to suffer the way my people suffered. But that's not what humanity did. Instead, we did something the galaxy has apparently forgotten how to do. We fought a war with purpose. Elena pulled up a holographic display showing the campaign. Humanity attacked 6 Crethian colonies. We freed over 1 million slaves. We destroyed military installations, and when we were done, we left. We didn't occupy. We didn't conquer. We didn't enslave. We liberated and withdrew. At the Battle of Cre Prime, we defeated the largest fleet ever assembled by any single species. We had the power to destroy the Crethian homeworld. We could have killed billions in revenge, but instead we offered terms. We demanded justice, not genocide. She looked around the chamber. The council asks if humanity wants membership. The freed species petition for us to have a special role. Before I answer, I need to tell you what humanity is. Elena took a breath. This was the part she had rehearsed 100 times. Humans are predators. We evolved as hunters on a dangerous world. For most of our history, we fought each other. We have a capacity for violence that most species in this galaxy cannot comprehend. We have committed atrocities against our own kind that would horrify you. The chamber was absolutely silent. But we learned. Over thousands of years, through terrible mistakes and hard lessons, we learned to control that capacity for violence. We learned to channel it. We created laws, ethics, codes of conduct. We learned that might does not make right. We learned that the strong have a duty to protect the weak, not exploit them. Elena pointed at the piece of rubble. Demeter taught us that the galaxy has forgotten these lessons. The Crethians enslaved species for 50,000 years, and the galaxy let them. They attacked a peaceful colony, and the galaxy issued statements. You have rules, but no one willing to enforce them. So here's humanity's answer. Yes, we'll join the council, but not as just another member. We want the role the freed species are petitioning for. We want to be the wardens of the galaxy. When species like the Crethians attack the weak, humanity will respond. When slavers operate in the shadows, humanity will hunt them. When the council issues statements but takes no action, humanity will act. And before you reject this because it sounds like we're demanding to be the galaxy's police force, understand this. We don't want this role. We didn't ask for it. But someone has to do it, and apparently no one else will. So it falls to us. Ambassador Tiernal of the Velpari stood. Ambassador Vasquez, with respect, what you're describing is vigilante justice. The council exists to prevent exactly this kind of unilateral action. Really? Elena replied. Then where was the council when the Crethians attacked Demeter? Where was the council during the 50,000 years they enslaved billions? Your rules didn't stop them. Your procedures didn't save anyone. We must follow proper diplomatic channel. While people die, Elena interrupted. While civilians are murdered? Tell me, Ambassador, how many people had to die at Demeter before proper diplomatic channels would have resulted in action? 1 million? 10 million? All of them? Tyrnal had no answer. The council speaker raised his hand. Ambassador Vasquez, the council understands your frustration, but we cannot simply allow one species to appoint themselves as the galaxy's military force. That could lead to tyranny. You're right, Elena agreed, which is why humanity isn't asking for unlimited authority. We're proposing a framework. Humanity will respond to clear acts of aggression or exploitation. But we'll answer to this council. We'll report our actions. We'll provide evidence. And if the council believes we've overstepped, you can vote to sanction us. You would actually accept council oversight? Another ambassador asked skeptically. Yes, because we're not interested in building an empire. We're interested in making sure what happened to Demeter never happens again. To anyone. Elena pulled up another display showing the freed Crethian colonies. In the 6 months since the war ended, humanity has helped establish democratic governments on 7 former Crethian slave worlds. We've provided medical aid, infrastructure support, and defense training. We haven't claimed a single world. We haven't extracted tribute. We helped them rebuild, and then we left military advisors to help them defend themselves. This is what humanity means by being wardens. We protect, we defend, we train others to defend themselves, and then we leave. The council chamber erupted in debate. Ambassadors argued back and forth. Some supported humanity's proposal. Others feared it. Everyone had an opinion. Finally, the council speaker called for order. The council will vote. The question is, should humanity be granted membership with special warden authority as described? The vote requires a 2/3 majority. The vote took an hour. Ambassadors consulted with their home governments. Deals were made. Compromises were reached. Finally, the results appeared on the main display. 127 in favor, 58 against, 15 abstaining. The motion passes, the council speaker announced. Humanity is granted council membership and warden authority, subject to oversight and review. Welcome to the Galactic Council, Ambassador Vasquez. Elena nodded, feeling the weight of what had just happened. Humanity now had a formal role in galactic politics. It was a role they had earned through blood and sacrifice, but it was also a responsibility, a burden they would carry for generations. After the council session, Elena returned to her quarters. A message was waiting for her from Fleet Admiral Chen. She opened it. Ambassador Vasquez, congratulations on the council vote. I wanted you to know. The memorial on Demeter is complete. The dedication ceremony is next week. Governor Okonkwo asked if you would give the keynote address. I think you should. The people there need to hear from someone who understands what they went through. Let me know. Chen. Elena looked at her schedule. She could make it to Demeter and back before her next council session. She sent a quick reply, I'll be there. 1 week later, Elena stood on a hill overlooking what had once been New Harare. The city was being rebuilt, but the scars were still visible. Construction crews worked 12-hour shifts to raise new buildings. But they had left one area untouched, the memorial. It was a simple design. A large wall made from the rubble of destroyed buildings, polished smooth. On the wall were carved the names of every person who had died defending Demeter. 780,000 names. In front of the wall stood a statue. It showed a colonial militia member, rifle in hand, looking up at the sky with defiance. The inscription at the base read, "They came expecting prey. They found humans." 50,000 people attended the dedication ceremony. Survivors, families of the dead, military personnel, government officials, everyone who had been touched by the Battle of Demeter. Governor Sarah Okonkwo introduced Elena. The governor looked older than she had 6 months ago. She walked with a cane now, her leg having been badly injured in the final days of the siege, but her voice was strong. We lost so many, Sarah said. We lost friends, family, neighbors. We lost innocence, but we never lost hope. We never lost the belief that if we could hold long enough, help would come. And it did. Today we honor those who held the line. Ambassador Vasquez will speak. Elena approached the podium. She looked out at the crowd. She saw military uniforms and civilian clothes. She saw humans and also members of the freed species, Hurani, Velpari, others, who had come to honor the place where humanity had shown the galaxy who they were. My name is Elena Vasquez, she began. I was born here in New Harare. This was my home. These were my people. She gestured at the memorial wall. Some of those names belonged to people I knew. My parents, Marcus and Sophia Vasquez. My sister, Carmen. My childhood teacher, Mr. Okonkwo, the governor's father. Friends, neighbors, the woman who ran the corner store where I bought candy as a child. When I heard about the attack, I was on Earth. I wanted to come home. I wanted to fight. But I was told I was needed elsewhere, helping coordinate the legal framework for the military response. So I did my duty, even though every day I wished I could be here. Elena paused, gathering her thoughts. I've spent 6 months helping prosecute Crethian war criminals. I've interviewed survivors from a dozen species. I've seen evidence of atrocities that will haunt me forever. And through it all, I kept asking myself, how did this happen? How did the galaxy let the Crethians enslave billions for 50,000 years? I found my answer. The galaxy had forgotten how to fight for what's right. They had become comfortable, complacent. They had rules and procedures, but they had forgotten that sometimes rules need to be enforced by force. The people of Demeter remembered. When the Crethians attacked, you didn't wait for the council to debate. You didn't form committees. You fought. For 30 days you held against impossible odds. You reminded the galaxy what it means to stand up to bullies. Elena felt tears running down her face. You paid a terrible price for that lesson. 780,000 lives. An entire generation of our colony. Children who will never grow up. Parents who will never see their children again. A city reduced to rubble, but you won. Not just the battle, you won something more important. You proved that humans will not be victims. You proved that peaceful people can fight when they must. You proved that we will never surrender our freedom, our dignity, or our humanity, no matter the cost. She looked at the statue of the militia member. That statue represents all of you. Every person who picked up a weapon. Every person who refused to run. Every person who said not one more step to the enemy. You are the reason humanity now has a seat on the Galactic Council. You are the reason freed slaves across the galaxy have hope. You are the reason the galaxy will never again dismiss humanity as insignificant. Elena turned back to the crowd. The Crethians came here expecting to find easy prey. They found humans instead. They found farmers who became soldiers. They found teachers who became warriors. They found ordinary people who did extraordinary things. Today we dedicate this memorial, but it's not just a reminder of who we lost. It's a reminder of who we are. We are humans. We are the species that chose peace but never forgot how to fight. We are the people who will stand up for the weak, who will challenge the strong, who will never let another Demeter happen to anyone. The galaxy will remember the Battle of Demeter. They will remember what happened when someone made the mistake of attacking humanity. And they will remember that we fought not for conquest, not for revenge, but for something simpler and more powerful. The right to be free. Elena stepped back from the podium. The crowd was silent for a moment. Then slowly people began to stand. One by one they rose until everyone was on their feet. They were not applauding. They were standing in honor of the dead, in recognition of the sacrifice, in acknowledgement of what had been lost and what had been gained. After the ceremony, Elena walked through the memorial. She found her parents' names on the wall. She touched them gently, feeling the cool stone under her fingers. "I hope I made you proud," she whispered. A voice behind her said, "They would be." Elena turned. Governor Okonkwo stood there, leaning on her cane. "You did good work at the council," Sarah continued. "Getting them to accept the warden role, that wasn't easy." "It was necessary," Elena replied. "The galaxy needs someone willing to act. Demeter proved that. Do you think humanity is ready for that responsibility?" Elena thought about it. "I don't know, but we're the only ones willing to try. That has to count for something." Sarah nodded slowly. "The Admiral told me something before he left. He said that before Demeter, he thought humanity had evolved past war. He thought we'd left our violent history behind. But after Demeter, he realized the truth. We didn't evolve past violence. We learned to control it. We learned to use it for the right reasons." "Is that what we did?" Elena asked. "Used violence for the right reasons? You freed 1 million slaves. You stopped an empire that had enslaved billions. You showed the galaxy that evil has consequences. I'd say yes. Those were the right reasons. Elena looked back at the wall of names. I hope so. Because if we're going to be the galaxy's wardens, we need to be very sure we're doing it right. Power like that, it can corrupt. It can turn us into what we fought against. That's why the council oversight is important, Sarah said, and why people like you need to be involved. You remember the cost. You'll make sure we never forget why we fight. They stood together in silence for a while, looking at the memorial. Around them, Demeter was rebuilding. New buildings rising from the rubble. New farms being planted. New families arriving to replace those lost. Life continuing, despite everything. Finally, Sarah spoke again. What happens now, Elena? The war is over. The Crethians are beaten. What does humanity do next? Elena smiled slightly. We keep our promise. We watch for the next threat. We protect those who can't protect themselves. We make sure no one else has to build a memorial like this one. That's a big job. Yes, but we're humans. Big jobs are kind of our thing. Sarah laughed. The first genuine laugh Elena had heard from her in months. True. We held Demeter for 30 days with farming equipment and hope. I suppose watching over the galaxy isn't that much harder. They walked back down the hill together, leaving the memorial behind. The sun was setting over New Harare, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. It was beautiful, despite everything. In orbit above Demeter, the Terran Defense Fleet maintained their watch. They would stay here for years, making sure the planet was never threatened again. Across the galaxy, in freed colonies and rebuilt worlds, humanity's message was spreading. We will not conquer you. We will not enslave you. But if someone tries to harm you, we will come, we will fight, and we will win. It was not the role humanity had wanted. They had been content to farm their worlds, explore space, and live in peace. But the galaxy had reminded them that sometimes peaceful people need to be ready for war. And when war comes, it's better to be the warriors than the victims. The Crethians had learned that lesson. They would never forget it. And neither would anyone else. 10 years later at a council meeting, Ambassador Tyrnal would ask Elena, "Do you ever regret taking on the warden role? The burden it places on humanity?" Elena would think about Demeter, about the memorial wall, about her parents and sister, about all the people who died so that others could be free. Every day, she would answer honestly, but I'd regret not doing it more. Someone has to stand up for what's right. Someone has to be willing to fight for the weak. If not us, then who? Tyrnal would nod slowly. The galaxy is lucky it was humanity who took that role, and not a species that would abuse it. Give us time, Elena would joke darkly. We're still learning. But deep down she knew the truth. Humanity had learned its lessons the hard way, through thousands of years of mistakes and horrors. They knew what happened when power was abused. They knew the cost of tyranny and conquest. That knowledge,